Hi, everybody. That's my Dr. Nick from Simpsons Imitation. Anyway, hey, Facebook and YouTube viewers. This is Secondhand Dan coming to you from the Penny Pincher Thrift Shop. And I am in the workshop in the back. If you saw one of my previous videos, you saw I was ready to start a new steampunk creation. So let's see where I'm at on that. Okay, when I first debuted this chassis, it was a lot more rusty and it had some other things clinging to it. I cleaned it up a bit. Anything's still possible. I'm thinking about leaving that upper deck on there and fashioning a piece of wood to go in there. I got a few things I might consider throwing on there. Let me show you what they are. All right, I have here, I picked this up in somebody's trash. What is that? Well, whoop, look at that. This is what's typically known as a bread box drawer. A lot of your old cabinetry in kitchens, this was inserted into one of the drawers. Because it is tin, moisture was not able to permeate it as easily and get to your bread and make it stale. Either make it too damp or too dry. Even though it does have a breather on it. But when I place this down here on this chassis here, I mean, I already had it sitting on here once and somebody came by the store and was looking at some things and they said, oh, I thought that was part of it. So it kind of looks like a good fit there. I do need a little bit of spacer blocks under it because it's exactly as wide as the rails. So I'll need something to keep it from wanting to slip down into the rails. So I'm figuring this is going to be a lamp. We're going to bring a stem up on top of it. It'll be like a side table. So inside here, they can keep their crossword book, their remotes, their moisturizing lotion, whatever, eyeglasses. So there's a storage compartment. And I was thinking maybe somehow I could incorporate this. Right now I'm just spitballing. This may never end up on there. It very well could end up on here. But that's how this works, you know. You take things, you set them on there, you eye it up. Sometimes I leave it sit like that for a week, couple weeks, and before I get the inspiration, say, yeah, that belongs on there, or I found something better. But right now, I got to work on the chassis. If you saw in the earlier video, it had two of these straps on it. These are actually copper. So they can end up back on this somehow in some form and fashion because it's very malleable. I could hammer it, use it as trim. I could polish it up and bring the copper back out of it a little bit, even though you wouldn't know that was copper just to glance at it, but it is copper. So, you know, wire brushing it a little bit. And the name of this game is you don't have to go crazy. I mean, there are some schools of thoughts you can go either way. I mean, a high polish, a bright luster on the copper, but then if everything else is toned down, then it's going to stand out too much. So I might just lightly wire brush something like this. I don't like putting a lot of, here, let's look at you. I don't like putting a lot of gloss on it because it's kind of a commitment. Because then every part you find, be it brass, copper, steel, stainless, whatever, then you want to have to polish it all so it kind of looks like a polished item. But I'm going for the more primitive look when I build my steampunk lamps. Right now this cart is a three-wheeler and it's going to stay a three-wheeler because there's no point in upgrading that. I mean, but I do think I need to take this front caster possibly off and clean it up so it rolls a little easier. Because this is going to be a heavy item when it's done, because it's heavy even before I start bolting more stuff on it. I'd say there's probably about 20 pounds right there. It has a capability of a tow bar on it. There is a plumbing fitting here. I think that would be 3/8. So that looks like a 3/8 black iron T. So I need to find either some dowel rod. See, I'm getting inspiration. I just realized I have some all thread back there, because I was wondering if I even had a piece of the proper gauge pipe. So, and I don't mind if all thread is a close enough and isn't exact. I don't care. I'll force it in there, because it's not like it has to function or be liquid tight. So we want to maybe create the illusion. It won't be just an illusion, because you actually will be able to grab it by the handle and tow it around if you need to pull it from one room to another, or move it so you can vacuum. I had a video up on YouTube just prior to this one, and it was a disaster. I mean, the content was good, but I didn't have my cordless mic working, so that was one problem. And then the format came all screwy on it, so instead of it filling up your screen, it was like a small portion in the center of your screen. So, and it only got 11 views after being up for nearly 3 days, so I just went ahead and canceled it. I do have my my lapel mic working now, so, and I've made an extra precaution to make sure. I did a test to make sure that I'm not going to end up with the wrong format again. I really want to just jump in and start working on this, but when I look at this workbench, I said, I got to do something about that, because I don't like it. And I need the work surface, because this is heavy iron. And I could work on my other workbench, but that's just a thin gauge in comparison, steel top, and it's freshly painted. And so I'm going to go ahead and clear this off. All right, well, I'm getting ready to weld this. I guess I turn you around. Better if I put a weld there, there, here, here. That should keep the thing square for the rest of its life. So let's go ahead and do that. My welder, I think this was a birthday present to me a number of years ago. Still trying to get a handle on it. You know, min max 1, 2. Okay, I used it the other day, but I was just hitting some sheet metal with it. So what I'll do is I'll do a test. I'll find something of a thick gauge and see how kind of bead it lays down. Here's your wire speed. This is a MIG welder. So I guess it's like, even though it says min max, I mean, technically 1 and 2 could have been over there, and min max could have been over here. So you get the picture? It seems like that happens too often, but what can you do? You put something away that's been out for a couple days, and then you put it away, and then you need it just a couple hours later. It's like, ugh. So here's the extension cord for the welder, and whatever. It's got 2 different outlets on here. I can plug dryers and stoves in here, but this wire runs all the way across the room, up the wall there, over that black pipe, and into the back room. This was already here when I bought the building. So I made an adapter for my welder to plug into that. My welder is a 220. Now, since I've decided not to use these spacers that were here, but they do seem to be heavy gauge, so equivalent to these. So I'm going to do a test weld on here. Now, to get a legitimate weld test, these were covered with rust and paint. So I took it over to the grinder and got myself a clean surface so I can make sure that I'm getting a good result, that I'm getting a good reading on what weld I'm laying down. So now I would suspect that it would need to be, quote, hotter than, the welder would need to be hotter than what I was using just the other day, because like I said, I was only tack welding some sheet metal onto a bicycle crank. So okay, we'll go from min to max. Okay, welder's on. Flipping over to max. I think I might need just a little more wire feed than I did before, so I'm going to bump it from a 3 up to a 4. And I'll go ahead and close my eyes and look the other way and lay down some wire here. Huh. Must have a real bad ground there. I need to get some snips to... I pulled the trigger and nothing happened. You know, my first thought was when I clamped that on there, wiggle it, get a good ground, and I did wiggle it, but I guess it still must be contaminated wherever it's holding on. So let me run this over to the wire or the grinder. I'm actually using a grinding, like a bench grinder, to clean off the paint. Okay, I now have 2 surfaces cleaned on this piece of steel. And I'll probably keep this around for doing test welds in the future, but now you see I got this side and this side. The other side is still in paint, but that should make a difference. Oh, that sounded hot. Yep. Okay. I'm kind of pleased with that. Almost, maybe a little too much penetration off the top of my head, but what do I know? So, do I back off the wire feed or do I back off the voltage? Let's try backing off the voltage. So, I put the 1-2 switch into the 1 position. Look away. Can't say I see a huge difference, but I do see some. 1, 2. So I'm going to roll with that. Let me get my welding mask. I used to be fairly inept at welding. I've worked at fabrication places in the past. There are a lot of real welder guys around there, so if I had any questions or if they needed to tweak my machine settings for me, they would do that. I keep saying I would love to have one of those automatic dimming ones, but not unless I find one for a song, because I don't do enough welding to go ahead and just run out and buy a new one. Luke, I am your father. All right, well, I've been putting down a couple tacks. A couple of them I'm embarrassed by, but I would not tell anybody I was a welder. I have to grind off a little bit of that one weld because I'm so embarrassed about how it looks. Let me show you. Now, if you needed a nipple rather than a good bead of weld, this is the way to go, but I got to ground that nipple off. Uh-oh. Joker's to the left of me. Cousin Roy's in the house.
You know, what can I say, baby? Just living life one lifetime, one day at a time.
All right, you caught me in the middle of a project, so.
What is this? Some
All right, well, I'm pleased with my weld jobs now. And I'm going to bolt this to this frame. So I have these 2 mini bolts. Hopefully I got some rusty nuts. So I'm going to come up from the bottom and I'll put a rusty nut on there, because if that's what catches the field of vision, I want it to look a little bit older. So, and I don't see any rusty bolts this size, that small. So, hopefully, okay, there's one. And here's another one. So, put the rusty nuts on here. That'll help these to blend in. The bottom, as shiny as they are, will be on the bottom, so you won't, they won't stand out in your field of vision as much. And like I said, was using the rusty nuts. That's why I hang on to rusty hardware. Get the right size sockets here. It's a problem. I'm the generation where SAE, which means a lot of people call it American or something like that, or SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers. The standard sizes that I grew up with have pretty much gone by the wayside. Now everything seems to be metric, but in this line of work, when I'm working with old things, I do often have to go back to the SAE standard of sockets. But sometimes you can get away with a ½ inch is 13. They're usually close enough. So let me tighten this down. Yeah, I'm making progress there. I hope it stays square when I torque it down here. I put the welder away. At least I didn't leave that out in the middle of the floor. For all you people say, put it away as you go along. Ouch. Now, when you have newer hardware and you want it to look old, there are some tricks. I think they actually sell some things you can brush on there, and or if you know you're going to need it, you could actually just put a couple scratches in it and throw it outside for a couple of weeks. But who knows which hardware you're going to actually need in a couple of weeks from now. So I don't want to wait a couple of weeks for my hardware to season. Get that patina on it. All right. This piece of steel here actually has a slight bend in it. I don't know how, but I mean, I'm sure maybe they were using scrap steel themselves when they used this piece of steel, but for testing it for square means I should have some gap at the top and the bottom to balance out the bend. So, and it's now on this side over here, that doesn't look good. Let's spin it around and double check on that. Yeah, so yeah, that needs a shim in it because this is leaning a little too far that way. So I'll loosen it up and maybe stick a washer under the one corner, and it'll kick it back a little bit. Because I want to kick this back just a little bit. So let's get a washer. I'm not putting the washer on the bolt. I'm just going to put it sandwiched between the two pieces of angle iron. I'm going to use this little lock washer here. Pull back on this, slip that in there. Oh, come on, lift up on that. Okay. I guess you could say I'm fine tuning it, but it doesn't have to be that fine. I just don't want it to be obvious from across the room that something is crooked. They seem largely to be the same. Let me add some torque to this. Now what's throwing me is that the front of this cart's actually higher than the back due to the caster, whatever the configuration between this caster versus this wheels and the axle in the back, this ends up being a little bit taller. And I'm not going to try and level out the whole table, but I am trying to make it square to itself. And that looks like it was overkill. So I got to take that washer back out and find a thinner washer. Maybe I'm just splitting hairs here. Maybe I should just let it go. Let it go, let it go. Because I don't know if I'm going to find a thinner washer. All right, let's just let it go. And just crack it with the hammer if I'm really upset with the angle. We got to make some progress on this thing. I say it's definitely an improvement over what I started with. Well, I guess I could level up. Level up. Gamers speak, level up. Because when I stand back, they stand back with me. How far off is this from being level? Well, let's get a level. A level will tell you if it's level. First off, just verify that the table's level. Pretty much. Yeah, okay. Nope, this level's too short. Yes, it says the front end is up in the air. So, and I know I can't lower the front wheel any. It's pretty much fixed. Now the back axle, I could take the nuts off of it and shim it. I don't know, what do you think? Does that look good enough? Well, let's use a longer level, which will tell us from one extreme to the other. Okay. So if I lift this level up in the back until it says level, it's saying there's an inch difference between the front and the back. I gotta verify that the table isn't out of whack that much. Actually, I think it says this end is a hair higher. So the only way to figure out for certain the difference between the front of this and the back of this would be to lift the back of the cart up until the level says level, and then see how high those back wheels are off the ground. So let's get a 1/2-inch piece of plywood here. And then look at the level. And that's like spot on. So there's a 1/2-inch difference between the front and the back of the cart. And it does look better to me with that 1/2-inch elevation in the back. So I'm going to do something about that. So hang on. Let's see. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? All right, everyone. Last time I was checked in, I was showing you that I needed to level this cart out. So I created some shims and raised the back end up. You can see they're right there. So that's a piece of Trex decking that I cut and put on each side. So that elevated it about 3/4 of an inch. It's pretty close to level now across the way here. I'm throwing things at it, see what sticks. You know, nothing is for sure just yet. I put this this old Victorian style lampshade shaft on here. I'm not absolute as to whether that's going to stay. Right now it's just held on with a pair of vice grips. So like I say, I'm just throwing things at it, see what sticks. Time will tell. So I'm going to call this part 1. I'll do you a part 2. So like, subscribe, and comment. This is Secondhand Dan signing off. Or as Benny Hill would do. Bye.